Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and today I want to chat with you guys a little bit about what I'm personally doing on my off days from training with bodyweight pull-ups and just kind of why I'm doing it. So let me put on my +5 out of weaponsmithing, work on skilling up my crafting a little bit, and let's talk about this. Because, that's the interesting thing. When you do full body training 3 days a week, you don't necessarily want to be completely sedentary on your off days. Now, granted, you're not going to want to do things that are going to elicit a large training response because you might be at your limits. Now, in my case, because like yesterday, and I'm on a cut. You guys got to remember, I'm losing a couple pounds a week at this point, successfully. I'm down to 209 right now, down from 255 earlier this year. And I'm going to drop down under 200 pounds. So I do want to do some activity on my off days, but by that same token, when I was doing cardio, throwing cardio in, I lost more lean mass than I wanted on a DEXA scan in between, so I decided not to do that. And that's kind of one of the things that we have to look at when it comes to fat loss and people who really and truly care about body composition. And I think even Alex Viada admitted that before, who I saw him admit it on Facebook, who, he's the writer of The Hybrid Athlete. He specializes in coaching hybrid athletes. He does marathons and powerlifting himself. And I recall him even saying that, if a person's goal was body composition only, then resistance training should be the extent of their exercise. And it makes sense because that's going to yield you the best benefits in overall body composition. And a lot of people who do different types of GPP work, general physical preparedness, whether it's, barbell complexes or prowler pushes or any of that stuff, generally the idea here is that their conditioning work or whatever they're doing on their non-training still possesses a resistance component. Well, why does that matter? Well, that matters because if you're increasing your energy turnover with something that maybe isn't as taxing to your recovery as your real training is, at least it hopefully has some anabolic stimulus to it. And that's the idea. Because we always say things like list cardio shouldn't make you lose muscle, but I sure wasn't happy with my leg results from doing an hour of list a day during a certain weight loss phase. So I became concerned with that. And at this point, because I'm squatting all I can handle, my legs can't really handle a lot on my off days because I'm squatting 3 days a week with pause squats with about as much as I can realistically handle. My legs feel okay with what I'm doing because I'm not doing anything really extra for them besides walking my dog and stuff like that. So I decided to mess around with Pavel Taussoline's greasing the groove or pull-ups, because this is something I've told people before when this has come up. I'm like, yeah, even people running my original novice 3 day a week 5x5, that you can do some GPP on your off days. And someone had even asked me years ago, could they do greasing the groove? I'm like, yeah, as long as you really keep the reps in check, then you could probably do greasing the groove. And it'll work just fine. And so that's what I'm choosing to do. And for those unfamiliar with Pavel Taussoline's greasing the groove, what he would have people do, and for those who don't know, he's a Russian strength coach. He had started with having his uncle, who had been in the Russian military, of getting him, because he was a middle-aged guy at that point, to where he could do 20 pull-ups. He wanted him to get to where he could do 20 pull-ups. And what he has you do is figure out your max pull-ups, and multiple times a day, every time you keep a chin-up bar or pull-up bar somewhere nearby, or a tree or whatever, several times a day, space through the day, whenever you just go under it, you crank out pull-ups that are no more than half of what your max number is. So if you can do 10, you wouldn't do more than 5. And he would have him test it once a month and see where he's at, and then go ahead, and that's his baseline. So if he got to where he could do 14, he would do no more than 7 at a time. And so essentially that's more or less what I'm doing. I don't know what my max is, but I just do 5s because that's what I do for my weighted pull-ups, right? I do 3 sets of 5 on my training days. And so I just come through and do body weight pull-ups in between. Well, the benefits I get there, am I going to gain very much muscle from that? Probably not, because again, we don't gain usually significant muscle stimulation for those of us who are no longer noobs. Now, noobs will gain muscle from doing even 5 reps with a weight they could do 10 or 12 reps with. They can do it. But people who are out of their novice phase, we don't really gain that much muscle or any significant portion of muscle from doing that. Now, it might help stave off muscle loss while you're cutting because I'm engaging in resistance training. But in terms of just the muscle gain in the primary movers, probably not very much. But what is it that I'm gleaning out of it? All the support musculature, a little bit of caloric burn, things like that. And people would say, well, how many calories are you really going to burn doing 20 pull-ups a day. Not very many, a little bit, but you have to think in terms of just continuing metabolic turnover. And because for me, things like my biceps and rear delts and all that stuff are kind of possible weak links for me, they're getting a little bit of growth stimulation. And so what I'm doing, I'm re-sparking just a little tiny bit of muscle protein synthesis in most of the muscles of the upper body, right? My legs are about all they can handle, but my upper body isn't getting any real work outside of my training, right? It's not getting any work outside of my training. Because, again, it doesn't get worked really when I walk my dog or I go grocery shopping or anything else. Maybe when I'm shooting. I do shoot several times a week. So, but it's not very much. So the pull-ups are allowing me to go ahead and re-spark some muscle protein synthesis in all the muscles of the upper body, because a pull-up is an entire upper body exercise, right? It does work, obviously, the biceps, rear delts, traps, lats, all of that, but it also works your abdominals, works your upper chest, long head of your tricep, your grip, all of those things. So what I'm doing, I'm reinforcing that training stimulus on my off days. Then we have to think in terms of why did he call it greasing the groove? Because you're training the motor pattern over and over and over. And so what I'm doing by training the motor pattern, I'm improving my neural efficiency on the dead hang pull-up, even with the body weight. Well, in theory, that extra neural efficiency should carry over to my weighted ones. And I have gotten stronger on my weighted ones. They've gone up slightly. My strength has gone up a hair. Even higher than my weight loss, right? It's gone up slightly more than my weight loss in terms of what I can do. Well, I started doing this when I was 10 pounds heavier, and I'm doing like 20 pounds more. So I've gained about 10 pounds on my 5 rep sets, roughly 5 to 10 pounds on my 5 rep sets on the weighted pull-up since I've been doing this while losing weight. Well, that means that I have gained a small amount of strength on that exercise. Even despite weight loss, fat loss, it's been a significant amount. Well, that's a good thing. That means I probably am getting that motor unit learning in. I'm greasing the groove. I'm getting those benefits. In addition to the fact that it is giving me a little extra core work, it's giving me grip work, which means my grip gets worked every single day. Because we're not dealing with rep ranges the same there. We can talk about, well, you need to come close to failure with certain muscles, at least 5 reps within failure to really stimulate significant growth on your dynamic work. But what about something like just grip? Grip is built just from an accumulation of fatigue. It doesn't have to be anywhere near maximum amount. So it's giving me extra grip work, it's giving me extra core work, and re-sparking that little bit of muscle protein synthesis can affect nutrient partitioning. It can affect calorie burn in that regard, because if you're back to causing a little bit of growth stimulus in muscles, that does require energy, and that means that those muscles are going to continue to try to grow in spite of a caloric deficit. So I might not be getting very much caloric burn out of it, but I am getting a nutrient partitioning benefit out of it. And I am burning a few extra calories with a growth stimulating movement, not something that's going to really potentially catabolize muscle tissue. So it falls back under the area of just general physical preparedness. Why? Because it's very mild conditioning. It's not serious. I mean, 5 rep pull-ups are not real conditioning. But since I'm doing it every day, just doing it randomly, and it is just building overall strength and things and motor patterns through a lift that is not a competitive lift for me, it is essentially for me just a form of GPP. Now, is it something I could probably throw in dips or something later? Yeah. I think for now, though, I think the pull-ups are a really good choice for it. I had actually thought about using the press and setting up a barbell and just doing the press with a lightweight, but I decided to add it back into my 3 full body workout days, and so now I can focus on those pull-ups. And it's can help some of my weak points, just improve just overall athleticism. And again, it gives me a physical activity that I can do on my off days from training that may have some benefits. It'll help some nutrient partitioning, burn a few calories that isn't going to impede my recovery. Because again, doing 3 or 4 or even 5 sets of 5 on a bodyweight pull-up for me, when I usually do them weighted, just isn't going to be significant in impacting my recovery. And that's usually the idea when you're doing any sort of GPP work in between on your off days. You're trying to make sure that you're not really hammering your recovery in a way that's going to negatively affect your lifts. And I would say since my weighted pull-ups have gotten stronger while I've been losing weight and doing this, those muscles are clearly not having a recovery issue as a result of doing it, right? Because weight loss and gaining strength, a small amount of strength, on an exercise means you're recovering just fine. So I feel like for me, it strikes a good balance, and I think it's something that people can look at, particularly a lot of you guys out there who are really concerned with upper body. You guys who are chasing aesthetics. I mean, a pull-up is a pretty good exercise for people who are chasing the aesthetics thing. What is it I always tell you guys? Chin-ups or pull-ups and the standing press are probably what most people out there, strength-based guys, should do more of if they want that certain aesthetic look. You know, they want the wide shoulders, the upper chest, all that stuff. Probably a real good choice to incorporate those exercises and do more of them. And something like a greasing the groove protocol on your off days absolutely does that. It's just providing more work that can carry over to better strength on a really valuable exercise like that. So that's why I'm choosing to do it. And essentially it is my GPP right now, because it's not sport specific. You know, it's not a specific exercise. It's just general training. All right, guys, but that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time.